Good morning, critical analysis. So this video is to cover what we would normally cover in our class on Tuesday, March 17th. So my plan in the midst of this thing that we're having to do all together here is to have a video for you for every day we meet. For every Tuesday, Thursday, you will have a video that I will do my absolute best to convey the information to you as if I were teaching face-to-face with you. The only difference is, of course, we're going to miss that interaction and that participation. And obviously, I am doing this from home, so I apologize in advance because I have my children home now because all the schools are closed, and the dogs and my husband. So if you hear screaming or anything like that, just ignore it. Everything's fine. And I'm just going to be here the best I can to help you all. Like I said, we're all going through this together. This is new for everyone. I have obviously never had to take an online class, out of the middle of the semester and fit my face-to-face students into it. And it's very strange. It's very unsettling, but we'll make the best of it, and I'm going to be here for you to support and do what I can. All right, so that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and start covering everything like I normally would, as if I were seeing you in our classroom in the K-Wing. Okay, so first thing, I hope everyone had an okay break. I know it's been crazy, especially more so on the faculty end as we got all this news coming in, and I know a lot of your lives have been interrupted and turned upside down. And I know for some of you, school may not be on the front burner right now. It's something that you're having to put in the back burner and get all of that. Just communicate with me. Just communicate with the school. Keep us posted on what you're thinking. All right. So initially over break, you had that midterm comprehension reading test to do. Listen, if you did it, hopefully you did it because it was homework. But if you did it, I'm going to go ahead and offer extra credit for you to either scan the pages and email them to me, take pictures of the pages and send them to me as attachments in an email, or in an email type 1 through 20 or whatever, and then your answers for each one. At this point, I'm not going to require it to be turned in because I don't have a Dropbox for it. I don't have a way for me to easily access it, and it's several pages long. And so it was a take-home midterm. It wasn't weighted more heavily than anything else. I'm not going to stress out about it. I'm not going to stress out you about it. So I've turned it into extra credit. If you would like to submit it to me somehow, I'm going to throw you some extra credit points. If you do not submit it, it's not going to count against you. I'm just going to basically take it out of the grade book. So that's where we are on that particular assignment. So from there, we are just going to jump in, and today I would have started covering Chapter 6 with you and going through the concepts of Chapter 6. So I'm going to be doing some screen sharing so that you can see my PowerPoints, you can see the websites I would have pulled up, you can see all of it, and you can still hear my voice in the background. So that's what we're going to do. So just give me a sec. The screen sharing is going to look very strange at first because you're going to see like a bunch of windows. Here they come. There we go. Look at that. All right. So the first thing I'm going to share with you is just the PowerPoint that I would normally show you in class. And my dog is ripping out all the cords on my computer right now. So, all right. So Chapter 6 is all about criminal justice. That's the topic of this particular chapter that the readings will focus on. And it's actually, I'm really sad that we're not doing this together because this is actually a really awesome chapter. I mean, of course, they're all awesome. But this one, I just feel like there's some really cool opportunities for like interactions and things like that. So I'm still going to show you what I would have done in class. And then if you want to kind of look at them on your own, it's fine. So that's what the reading content is covering, is criminal justice. Now, the actual reading skill that is focused in this particular chapter is fact and opinion, which at first, I know a lot of my college students are like, I know about this, like this, why are we even talking about this? But it's actually a little bit more in the gray area than some people anticipate. So we're going to talk about fact and opinion here. So I'm going to kind of go through here. All right, so the reason this is even important is because as a college student, you want to be a good critical thinker. And one of the very basics of critical thinking is knowing the difference between facts and opinions. You just have to be able to differentiate, especially like we can really apply this to right now. You guys, I have seen so much posted on social media and being texted, and some of it is just pure false facts. I mean, people are sharing things from 10 years ago and how it applies to now, and it just doesn't fit. And so in this day and age, and then especially in light of our current situation, knowing how to differentiate between facts, people's opinions, false information that's being put out there is so important. And then as a college student, you have to also be able to differentiate between facts and opinions. The reason it can sometimes get tricky, even though we know what a fact is, we know what an opinion is because a lot of authors and politicians and people in the public sphere, they're really great at making their opinion look like it's a fact when it's really not. So you have to really kind of pay attention to those things. So just real quick recap, I guess, a fact is something that can be proven. It can be verified somehow. It can be measured. It can be looked up in some kind of resource. It can be observed. So something that can be verified. It's provable in one way or the other. So here are some examples, or some a little bit more. It can be proven true or false. And this is where the term false fact comes in. So because the hallmark of a fact means it can be proven true or false, we can have false facts. Meaning, think about hundreds of years ago, and there's some people who still believe this today. The common belief was that the earth was flat. And then we had people go and observe from space and find out that, in fact, no, our earth is a sphere. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the earth is flat becomes an opinion. It becomes a false fact because it's something that has been proven to be false. So that's what a false fact is. So here are some examples of facts. The earth is, 4.5 billion years old. The diameter is 8,000 miles. The college has 10,000 students. We can verify all that information. Someone has, study this and put it in a resource. We can look it up. We can figure it out. So we can prove those statements true or false. Now, opinions, on the other hand, are not able to be proven. They're beliefs. They're judgments. They're your personal outlook on something. So you want to look for judgment type words. Good, bad, better, worse, awful, great, wonderful. Also words like should, may, possibly, those all signal opinions. So here are some examples of opinions. Dr. Johnson is the best physiology instructor at the college. He probably wishes he had fewer classes to teach. Dr. Johnson's students are lucky to be in his class. So the words, best, wishes, and lucky, those are all opinion or judgment words. So that's what makes these opinions. Those are someone's beliefs. Also with opinions, again, we can't prove them true or false. Their attitudes, judgment, feelings, guesses, predictions, which will lead me to this one. All future events are considered predictions. So I'm going to come into play with the COVID-19 stuff here in just a minute with this. But if you were trying to predict like the winner of like the Super Bowl or some kind of sporting event or whatever it might be, you're trying to predict the future. That is an opinion. You don't have anything to kind of verify it on. I mean, you might be like, oh, their stats are this and this, but you don't know the future. So that's a prediction. Some phrases you want to look out for whenever you are looking at opinions, things that say like, it appears, apparently, I believe, it's likely, this should, in my view, all of those are phrases that should kind of clue you in like, oh, wait, that's someone's opinion. But then you also have to use context. So sometimes a word like may can be used as a fact or as an opinion, and that's why you have to look at context. So scientists may discover life on other planets in the universe. Well, that's a future event. That's predicting the future. That's an opinion. This rock cycle may occur either beneath the Earth's surface or on the Earth's surface. That's a fact, but they're just showing you options of how something could happen. It's still a fact. So that's why you have to use context to see how it's being used. So often you will see authors or even yourself as when you're writing, you might use sentences that contain both facts and opinions. So the production of carbon dioxide from human activities includes burning coal, gas, and oil, which may cause a serious climate change on the Earth. This part of the statement is fact, but then they do a prediction, which is an opinion. So there's a little bit of both in there. All right, now here is our gray area. We know what a fact is, we know what an opinion is, but there's a gray area, and they're called reasoned judgments or informed opinions. These are basically opinions, but they are based on fact. They're based on evidence. So I always use the example of like meteorologists, for instance. Technically what they're doing is predicting the future. They're trying to tell you, a week from now, this is what the weather is going to look like. But they're not just making a wild guess. They have tools, they have data, they have past years, information on the weather. So they are making educated, informed opinions. And those are called reasoned judgments or informed opinions. So like the COVID-19 stuff going on, there's a lot of information coming out at once, and this is unprecedented, so we don't know really what's happening. But what these scientists are doing and what people in the health departments are doing is they are making some reasoned judgments. They're making some informed opinions. They're using whatever data we have, which is not a lot at this point, but they're using the data that we currently have to say, okay, we believe that the trajectory of this virus will affect X amount of people. So they're making reasoned judgments. They're not just coming out and just saying, oh, we don't know what's really going on, but here's our best guess. They have data to back up. So that's a reasoned judgment. All right, to further explain some facts and opinions and talk about the basic understanding of these. So again, we want to know what fact and opinion is. As college students, as people who consume information, we need to know the difference between these things. So again, facts are solidly grounded. They can be proven one way or the other. We can look them up. We can verify them. Opinions, on the other hand, are not. You cannot prove them. They are up for debate. So here's some example of a little personal ad here. Ready? So foxy lady, blue-haired beauty, 80, slim, 5'4", used to be 5'6", widow who has just buried fourth husband, has original teeth and new parts, including hip, knee, cornea, and valves. A groovy chick who is still the life of the party. There are actually a lot of facts and a lot of opinions in here. So I'll have you pause my video for a minute and just real quickly to yourself, think about what of these are facts and what of these are opinions. Okay, hopefully you paused and you're back with me. Here we go. So all of these would basically, most of this, blue-haired, which is like a slang way of saying like gray, 80s, 5'4", she's just buried her fourth husband, has original teeth and new parts. All of those are facts. We could look it up. How old is she? What's her height? Did she in fact bury four husbands? Which that would be a red flag. Now the opinions come in. Beauty, slim, groovy, life of the party. Those are opinions. Those things that are opinionated or beliefs, and this kind of breaks that down for you a little bit more too. So again, a fact can be proven through evidence, measurement, observation, verification of some sort. Here are some examples of facts. My grandfather has 11 toes. Well, we could count them. In 1841, William Henry Harrison served as president of the United States for only 31 days. He died of pneumonia. We can look that up and prove it and verify. Oops, sorry. And then tarantulas are hairy spiders capable of inflicting on humans a painful but not deadly bite. Again, we can look that up and verify. Now, opinions, again, are open to question. They're debatable. They are someone's beliefs. Here are those same statements we just saw 2 slides ago, now turned into opinions. So my grandfather had 11 toes was a fact. My grandfather's feet are ugly is an opinion. Someone else may think, oh, that's really cool to have 11 toes. Harrison should have never been elected president in the first place. Well, obviously he was. Some people thought he was a good idea. And then tarantulas are disgusting. Well, some people think they're cute. So again, those are opinions. Those are values that people place on those. All right, so as mentioned previously, sometimes a fact can be untrue and it's considered a false fact. So something that we once believed to be proven and true, we can maybe through other means of measurement or verification find out that it's false. And then again, you want to look for those opinion words, those judgment words, good, bad, better, worse, to verify an opinion. And this is context. Should, ought, those signal opinions. So look how others are using those in their language. And this is where it becomes tricky because a lot of information will often sound factual and it's really opinion. For example, the truth of the matter is that olive oil tastes much better than butter. Often when someone says, it's very clear that, or the truth of the matter is, they're trying to present their opinion as a fact. So you have to be wary and mindful of that. And then, as I've already mentioned again, much of what we hear is already a mixture of fact and opinion. They have a little bit of both in there. So the statement, each year over 1,600 Americans, teenagers kill themselves, and many of these deaths could have been easily prevented. Well, we could verify this first part of it. The second part is pure opinion. We just don't know. All right, we have to know the difference between the two. It's so important, especially again in our society where information comes to us so quickly. We cannot take everything for face value. So here are some examples. Which of these statements is a fact? No flower is more beautiful than a simple daisy. In Egypt, 96% of the land is desert. Hopefully you can tell that B, in fact, is our fact. A is our opinion. In here, which one is fact, which is the opinion, and which one has a little bit of both. It is riskier for a woman to have a first child after age than before. It is stupid for women over 40 to get pregnant. It is sometimes risky and always foolish for a woman to have a first child after 40. Hopefully you can tell that A is our fact because there's studies. We can prove that it is risky for people over the age of 40 to have a child. B is our pure opinion because other people may be like, well, wait, when you're 40, you're more financially secure. You might know who you are, so maybe it's not so stupid. C is our combination. Sometimes risky, always foolish. It is sometimes risky. They can prove that, but here's our phrase, opinion, always foolish. So that's how sometimes those facts and opinions can get blurred. All right, and then this is what we talked about in the last PowerPoint, that informed opinions, also known as reasoned judgments, are someone who is basing their opinion off of evidence. They're an expert that has tools or evidence to help back up their particular claims. So that is the kind of the understanding of the difference between facts and opinions. We're going to look at some more examples. Again, sorry for all the screens. All right, here we go. So we're going to look at just a few of these, not all of them, but you are more than welcome to kind of take a look as I have the screen up and see how you would do on this. So our job on this phrase is to look to see, is this a fact, is this an opinion, or a little bit of both? So we're going to look at number one. Thomas Jefferson's Louisiana purchased double the territory of the United States, extending it to the Rocky Mountains. That's fact. We can look that up and verify that that's what he did. Okay. Number two, his appetite for expansion whetted by the Louisiana Purchase. President James Polk encouraged Texas to make the Rio Grande River the border of Texas, although Polk knew full well that the U.S. had no right to invade Mexican territory. Well, this is a little bit of both. We could look up this part right here. Did he in fact encourage this? However, unless there's like a direct quote saying, yes, I knew that I had no right to do this, or I should not have done this, that's an opinion. Unless we can verify it. And right now we don't have like a link to verify it. So this is an example of a little bit of both. Number three, in 1869, Dmitri Mendeleev predicted the chemical and physical properties of the element gallium, which he called alka aluminum. That's just pure fact. We can verify that. Number four, in 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act denied the Chinese entry into the United States. It also denied citizenship to those Chinese already living in the United States. This was a clear case of legalized racism. This is an example of both. This whole first part here is fact. We could verify that this is what happened in the 1880s. But this second part, almost anytime someone said this is a clear case, that's an opinion. This is a clear case of legalized racism. Some people may disagree with that. Some people may think that was necessary. All right, let's skip down to number 6. Victor Emmanuel II was the first king to rule over United Italy. He was also a madman who gave his toenail clippings edged in gold and encrusted in diamonds. Then he would give the clippings to palace favorites. Well, this is a little bit of both as well. As you're seeing, hopefully you're seeing a like kind of a trend here that a lot of these do have a little bit of both. We could verify that he was the first king over a united Italy, but the fact that he was a madman, someone might be like, oh, that's genius to get your toenail clippings and put them in gold. So that's an opinion phrase. And then let's look at the last one we'll look at here is number 7. In 1943, the extraordinary Jacques Cousteau invented an improved diving suit that allowed divers to descend 500 feet below the surface of the ocean. Nowadays, that suit is usually referred to as a scuba suit. I often have students who say, oh, that's all fact. That's all fact. We've got 1943. We've got his name. They can prove it that it was, in fact, an improvement over the previous one, how far it descends, and that it's called a scuba. However, there's one word really that throws this entire sentence off, the word extraordinary. That takes that sentence from fact to fact and opinion because that is a judgment word. Some people may think, well, he was just okay. So that's how easy it is sometimes to corrupt a statement or an idea from pure fact to a little bit of fact and opinion. All right, the last thing we're going to look at in terms of practice is right here on the screen that you see right now. Sorry, I'm sipping my coffee here. I'm going to read this paragraph and then I want you to think about what words need to be removed to make this pure fact. One of the most fascinating sharks in the sea is the goblin shark. It is the ugliest shark because it has long pointed snout that sticks up above its mouth. Its strange pink and gray body is covered in soft, flabby flesh. It lives in the darkest and deepest level of the ocean, which is a good place for a goblin to stay. Oh, look at that little guy. He's not that ugly, is he? So, hopefully as I was reading and as you're looking at the paragraph now, you can tell where are the opinion words or phrases. Right here is one. So we need to remove that. Most fascinating is a judgment. Someone else may not think that they are very fascinating. Again, another judgment word, ugliest. Some people may think he's attractive. I don't know. Now here, again, another judgment word, strange. Now I'm going to address this phrase right here, soft, flabby flesh. Now I don't know about you, but if someone came up to me and said, hey, you've got some soft, flabby flesh there, I would definitely take that as a not so great thing to hear. However, we're talking about a shark. We're not trying to put the shark down or give it weight issues. So that is actually just a statement of fact. It has flabby, soft flesh. So that does not get removed in this paragraph. And then this last little bit here, which is a good place for a goblin to stay. So if we would cross out what we did there, that would make this paragraph just more based on fact. All right. So that is kind of the overview and some practices dealing with fact and opinion. And hopefully you're starting to kind of see that there's a lot of gray area, that there's some difference between fact and opinion, and then how authors often group them together, as well as what that informed opinion is. Now, we're going to get into our textbook. And I'm going to encourage you to get into Blackboard. Let me get there. Under content, down to chapter 6 here. We are now in chapter 6. Here are a few resources. The PowerPoint that's normally there is still there. There's your study guide that's always there. Now here's your text sheet. I know you guys are going to miss the paper. I don't know what you're going to do the rest of the semester with no paper. I apologize. Everything's electronic now. So in chapter 6, under the course, like the content area, chapter 6, here's your text sheet. So if you click on that, I'm in Chrome, it's going to open up down at the bottom left-hand corner. And I'm going to pop it open here. And from here on out, I'm going to have to click Enable Editing so I'm allowed to type in it. From here on out, here are your options. Whenever we are doing these text sheets, you can print it if you have access to a printer, write on it, and then scan it or take pictures and send back to me. Or if you don't have access to a printer or that just seems like too many steps, just open it and you're going to type all your answers. You'll type all your answers as if you would just normally be writing them in, in class or at home. Now, I am going to need this from you because I still have to grade you. So back in the content area, right underneath where you downloaded it, you're going to upload it to me where it says Chapter 6 Text Sheet Dropbox. You'll go inside area. You'll see that I am making this due the end of this week, Friday, March 20th, so that I'm, a little bit of time to still get used to this. This is also how I'm going to have to take attendance. There's no other way for me to take attendance than kind of just making sure that you're getting your work in since I don't see you anymore. So you need to turn in your Chapter 6 text sheet by Friday, March 20th. You can see I have a 10 p.m. deadline there to give you a little extra time for those of you who might be working more or taking care of family members or whatever it might look like. You're going to go in there, go to Browse My Computer, find where you saved it. So for me, it's on my desktop. So I highlight it, hit Open. I'll see that it appeared here, and then I would hit Submit. And that's how I will get it on my end to be able to grade it. So that is kind of where we are at this point, since I can't see you all any longer face-to-face. So I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and get your Chapter 6 text sheet up and going. And then we are also going to shortly be talking about our vocabulary words. So there's the Chapter 6 study guide. So you can also get that pulled up and ready because we're going to see, I think, like 17 of our words in today's lesson is the goal, is to get through about 17 of them. So you'll have your study guide sitting up as well. All right. So I know on my end, I'm having to do a lot of like back and forth here, and you will too as well. So Chapter 6, beginning of Chapter 6, it starts on page 278. I'm not going to do a lot of reading like I normally would in class because that would just kind of make the videos even longer. So I'm just going to kind of talk about the readings, and then you can pause the video and read the selection and then pick back up, or whatever you need to do. So the beginning of page 279 gives us the intro to criminal justice and kind of what the role they play, and that criminal justice contains people in the fields of law enforcement, those who investigate issues in law enforcement, sometimes people who are dealing with like even the social aspect of it, like human and social service workers, or those who are looking at DNA testing. So it's all encompassing. It kind of covers quite a bit here. So I'll have you read that on your own. But for now, I'm going to have you turn your attention. We're going to look at a couple practices here on fact and opinion before we get to our text sheet. So I'm going to have you go. Again, I'm using my physical textbook here to kind of flip through to get where I need to go. I'm going to have you start taking a look at page 303. Oops. Wait a minute here. All right, skill focus, fact and opinion. Page 302, 303. Okay, so here's where our textbook goes into a little bit more depth about the difference between facts and opinions. So they give a fact up here, the Florida police force has doubled in the last 10 years. Okay, we can verify that. Opinions, the Florida police force is doing a very effective job, and the Florida police don't know what they're talking about. Those are opinions, people's beliefs. So underneath there, exercise 6.7, again, we're just kind of looking at this. This is not on your text sheet yet. Looking at how facts and opinions are manifested in actual paragraphs. Passage 1 says, random police searches on highway checkpoints and in subway entrances have increased in the last few years. In New York City, especially, the random checking of bags and other personal belongings has become commonplace. Police officials have developed a number of methods to conduct these searches, working with X-ray technology and at times police dogs. That whole paragraph is just pure fact. We could verify that. We could look that up. There are no opinion phrases in there. Passage 2, however, random police searches violate our privacy rights. Americans are not accustomed to this type of harassment. This really is a clear violation of police power. It is time that we speak up and put an end to this practice. Now, very similar content to passage 1, but this is more in opinion. Passage 2 is written in more in opinion. Again, like when people say things like, this is very clear, this is a clear case of, or this is obviously, it's usually an opinion trying to be presented as a fact. So I would just recommend, if you are struggling or want more practice, there is more information in here about like the phrases you can look at, and then a little bit further down there are practices that if we were in class together, I would kind of do these with you to make sure that you were feeling comfortable. If at any time you want to do extra practices and you want me to check them, send me a quick email and say, hey, on page 304, I did passages 2, 3, and 4. Here are my answers. Is this right? I can give you some feedback on that so that you know you're on the right page. I just want to always make sure that you get the feedback as if you were with me in class. All right, so I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that particular exercise. So now we are going to go to our first reading, and it is on page 307. So it's reading number 3, nonfiction, is where you'll go if you're looking at your table of contents. Reading number 3, nonfiction. And you'll go to the pre-reading questions to kind of get you to the beginning of this. Now, this is part of your Chapter 6 text sheet, Part A, actually, and Part B. All of this is based on the reading that you're about to do called The Other, Less, More. And I'll talk about the questions too. So it gives you a little bit of intro, like what if you were born into a different family? How would your life have turned out differently? How do the people around you and your family influence the person you've become? So I will encourage you to pause the video and go ahead and read the section. It's an excerpt because it's not the whole thing. It's from The Other, Less, More. It's about basically two different people with the same name, and they had very different lives, and how the one Westmore discovered the other Westmore's path, and he was just really curious. So I'll have you go ahead and pause, read the reading, and then come back to me because we'll talk about the vocabulary you see in this article as well as the questions that you're going to answer on your text sheet. So, all right, I'm going to anticipate that you paused and read. Hopefully, right? I'm not being too naive here. But we are going to go ahead and talk about the vocabulary first, and then we will go through the questions that you would have seen there. So I'm going to pull up my copy of the study guide so you can see this as we go. All right. So as you read through this particular reading, you would have seen 5 vocabulary terms from this particular reading on our text sheet. And I'm going to start with the word perpetrators on page 309. So a perpetrator on page 309 is someone who is accused of committing a crime. The perp is probably what you most likely hear in like TV shows or anything like that. They use perp as a slang word. Someone who's accused of committing a crime. Also, a little bit further down on page 309, the word superficial. Superficial is just like on the surface. If you've ever known someone who's superficial, maybe they only care about like what someone looks like, not necessarily their character or what makes them who they are. Superficial is on the surface. So if you have like a superficial injury, it literally is just on the surface. It didn't get deep into your skin or it didn't harm you very well. So it's not a deep level. So far, perpetrator and superficial. Again, always feel free to pause if I'm going too quickly to catch up, rewind. That's kind of the beauty of having the videos here. All right, on page 310, we have the word correspondence, and this just means written communication. That could look like an email, correspondence. It could be a letter. So anything that's a written communication, you're corresponding with someone, that correspondence. Also on page 310, heinous, meaning wicked or awful. If you've heard of like a heinous crime, that might be like a really gruesome beating, assault, murder, like very awful, something heinous. And then on page 310, the word accountability. To be held responsible. If you're accountable for something, you are being held responsible for that. So in the story called The Other Wes Moore, we talked about the words perpetrators, superficial, correspondence, heinous, and accountability. So those are the 5 words you would have seen as you read through that selection. Now, back to our text sheet. I'm going to talk about the questions you're going to answer. I won't necessarily do all of them with you. So if you look at page 311, and again, I'm going to have to kind of flip back and forth. I know as you are as well. So if it's reading with a critical eye, there's the questions. These are basically the short answer questions. So make sure you are answering the short answer questions for part A at the very top. You are answering questions 2, 4, and 5. Question 2 says, how does Wes Moore learn about the other Wes Moore's crime? And how does this information affect him? So that's basically asking you, like, how did he know about this guy? Where did he find out about this other Wes Moore and what he did? So maybe go back in the passage and look if you need to or if you recall. Question 4 says, how did Wes Moore manage to compile enough information to write a full-length book on this subject? Remember, all you did was read an excerpt. You only read a tiny little piece. This is a much larger piece. So what kind of steps did he have to take to get all this data and all this information? Did he do interviews? Did he read? Did he go visit? So that's what question 4 is wanting to know. What did he do? And then question 5, how does Wes Moore show his sensitivity to the shooting victim's family in the last paragraph? So in paragraph 11 is where they're wanting to draw your attention. Right here. How was he sensitive to the fact that he knows he's talking about a criminal who assisted in having people die? So how did he show that sensitivity in that paragraph? So that's what you're answering on part A, questions 2, 4, and 5 on your text sheet. Questions 2, 4, and 5. Now, part B is also based on the other Wes Moore. Part B is the reading comprehension check. So on your text, you could just scroll down or you can click on it there. Reading comprehension check. You'll start seeing now we're in the multiple choice questions. And you are answering questions 2, 3, 9, and 10. 2, 3, 9, and 10. And it's going to be based on what you think fact and opinion is. And I'll do a couple of these with you, and then you'll do a couple on your own. Question 2 says, as a senior at Hopkins University, I received one of the most prestigious academic awards for students in the world. This one gets a little tricky. At first, it looks like maybe there's a mix of fact and opinion, right? Because, okay, we could look up and see, did this guy get this award? However, this is a quote. It's a quote. This guy said this. It's not just the author saying, oh, this is a really cool award or a really great award this guy got. So for number 2, it's actually a statement of fact, even though at first it looks like there's opinion in there. And again, the reason it's fact is because this is an actual quote that someone said. We're not debating whether what he said is fact or opinion. We're looking to see, is this in the text? Can we verify this quote? And we can. We can verify that this is what this person said. That's what makes it a fact. All right, number 3. This is simply just a quote from the article itself. But even the worst decisions we make don't necessarily remove us from the circle of humanity. So this is a quote from the author. And his quote there is an opinion. That's an opinion, because some people may think, oh no, if you kill someone, that makes you less than human. You're a monster. So that's an opinion there. So I did 2 and 3 with you. 2 was A and 3 was B. Now go ahead and take a look at questions 9 and 10. Questions 9 and 10, and then fill in your answers there for 9 and 10. All right. Now We are going to move on to our next reading, which is really the next selection here. It's called Library Visit, Then Held at Gunpoint at Yale, the Police Detained My Son. It's on page 313. If you go back to your table of contents, it's reading number 4. And so it'll take you to that particular reading. And this reading, just to preface it, it's a story about a Black college student at an Ivy League college who was wrongly stopped for a crime that he had nothing to do with. And so it's kind of about racial profiling and if the police have a right to use certain force. And so it's a touchy article. It was written in 2015, but this is always like a topic that comes up because it's something as society we should be aware of and we should be paying attention to. So again, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and pause the video and read the article, reading number 4, Library Visit, Then Held at Gunpoint at Yale, the Police Detained My Son. When you're done reading it, I will go over the vocabulary and then the questions that are associated. Okay, again, I'm going to hopefully assume that you paused, you read, and now you're ready to talk about it. And I'm going to go over first the vocabulary that you would have seen there. Page 313. Page 313, this is going to take us to the other side of the study guide. We saw the word accosted. He was accosted by a police officer, meaning he was approached aggressively. So if you're accosted, it's not a gentle thing. It's very aggressive. Maybe you're run into, you're pushed, you're grabbed. It's not pleasant. Approached very aggressively is what accosted means. On page 314, again, we have to go to the first page up here. Incident is just like what happened, like an incident report. Some of you might, at your place of employment, have to fill out incident reports if something happens. It's like the situation, what occurred, what was the incident. Also on page 314, the word suspicious. The word suspicious, something that attracts negative attention. So maybe someone is behaving strangely, they're acting in a way that is just attracting negative attention. Also on page 314, we have the word resist. The word resist. If you're resisting, in this case, like resisting arrest, is kind of what they're talking about. You're holding back or you're fighting against. Maybe you're trying to resist temptation of some sort. For me, it's Easter time, so there's lots of chocolate. I need to try to resist that temptation. I'm going to hold myself back from. And then on page 315, the word scenario. And this is kind of like incident, just means like a scene. The scene, again, like the situation, what occurred. So in this selection, library visit, then held at gunpoint at Yale, the police detained my son. We went over the words accosted, incident, suspicious, resist, and scenario. So we have now gone over 10 vocabulary words in this particular chapter. Okay, now I'm going to scroll down a little bit to the questions. And if I'm looking at our text sheet, this is going to be Roman numeral 2, parts A and B. So we're using A and B for these questions. So part A, you are answering questions 2 and 5. These are short answer. Question 2 says, according to the female police officer, why had the author's son been suspected of a crime? So you may want to look back toward the beginning. They talk about this kind of in paragraphs, like 9, 10, and so on, where they accosted the student and explain, why he's being held. And then question number 5, this is opinion, so you cannot be wrong unless you don't support it. Support your opinion. What is your opinion of the situation the author so vividly describes? Did the police act appropriately? Is the author's anger justified? Now remember, the author is the mom. It's not the student. The mom wrote this. So do you think that the police, why or why not? And then is the author's anger justified? I mean, this is a mama bear. She's upset. Does she have the right to be, and why? Or why not? Okay. And then part B, we're just answering 2 questions, and I'll do these with you. So you're looking a little bit further down on the reading comprehension check, the multiple choice questions. Number 2, there is no amount of respectability that can bend a gun's barrel. It's a weird phrase. It's a weird phrase, I understand that, but it's an opinion, because this is kind of like an idiom, a saying. So it's an opinion. She was basically saying, you know, doesn't matter how good of a person you are, if someone's going to shoot you, it's not going to turn the gun away from you, based on how you live your life. And then question 8, the dean of Yale College and the campus police chief have apologized and promised an internal investigation, and I appreciate that. So that's an example of a mixture of fact and opinion. So the fact that, you know, they're going to look into it, and then she appreciates it, that's the opinion part. She's appreciative. That's a judgment. That's kind of like a feeling. So that's a fact and opinion. So number 2 was B, and number 8 was B as well. Okay, now part C. Here's our TED Talk. Guys, this is like one of my favorite TED Talks. I love Bryan Stevenson. I love it. He is an amazing speaker. I really encourage you. I mean, you're always welcome to read the TED Talk, but I just love listening to this man speak. I get goosebumps every time because he talks about sitting with someone in history. That would be like an amazing experience. So, and he talks about something that's really important. Even in 2020, there is still racial injustice. There's still injustice between the rich and the middle class and the lower class. I mean, this is still there. We can't ignore it. We cannot ignore it. And if we have an opportunity to address these issues and talk about these issues with people in a respectable way, I think it's helpful and important that we do so. So he is your TED Talk. So I'm going to encourage that you listen, and then you will answer questions, part C, questions 4 and 5. Questions 4 and 5. Question 4, it'll direct you exactly what paragraph to look at if you need to look back in your textbook. And then question 5 talks about the death penalty and the comparison he makes between flying airplanes. So I would encourage you to listen to the TED Talk since he's an amazing speaker. And then for the questions, maybe go back and look in the text so you can go back and verify. But I will also talk about the vocabulary. So I'm going to bring up the vocabulary because you will see multiple vocabulary words in here. And so I'm going to go over them with you. As I said, we're getting almost 17 words out from our chapter right now. All right. On the back of your text sheet in your TED Talk on page 326, you will see the word incarceration, and that just simply means to be put in jail. Incarcerated means you are put in jail. Page 327, we see the word culpability, to be held responsible. If you're culpable, you're being held accountable. So it's very similar to a word we've already talked about today. Culpable, responsible. Also on page 327, we see the word exonerated, to be found innocent. To be found innocent. So maybe you were locked up, you were charged for a crime, but then new evidence came out and you were cleared of blame. You are exonerated. Also on page 327, apartheid. This is what happened in South Africa, and this is what Nelson Mandela, hopefully that name sounds familiar, lived in jail for. Like, he wanted to stop this policy of segregation. It literally was a policy. The United States had this. We didn't call it this. We didn't call it apartheid, but this is what we had in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. And thankfully, we've come a long way since then. I think there's still work to go, but this is what the United States did. It was a policy of segregation, apartheid. All right, on page 328, we have the word oppression. So this is normally when we talk about like a group of people, we're oppressing them, we're holding them down, we're not giving them certain rights or freedoms, or maybe we're not treating them the same way, and in doing so, we're holding them back from achieving something or having access to things. On page 329, we see the word injustice, which means unfair. Something that is unfair. It's not right. It is not just. And on page 330, we have the words prosecutorial misconduct. Prosecutorial misconduct, and that's just, hopefully you hear the word like prosecutor in there, the lawyer, someone who, they did something wrong. Maybe they lied. Maybe it was something as simple as maybe they ignored evidence, or they just didn't follow the right paperwork. They did something incorrect. So wrongdoing on the prosecutor's part. All right, so on the TED Talk, we will see or hear the words incarceration, culpability, exonerated, apartheid, oppression, injustice, and prosecutorial misconduct. Now, again, for our purposes, for both attendance and a grade, you are going to make sure that text sheet is filled out. In Content Chapter 6, there is a drop box. Fill it out, drop box it. That's how I will get a grade for you for Chapter 6 text sheet, and that's how you're going to get your attendance points for this whole week, is making sure you submit it. Okay. That is due on Friday. Friday, March 20th is when you need to have that submitted to me. The other thing I'm going to talk to you about, and I'm going to stop sharing and come back to you here. Here we go. The other thing I want to talk to you about is your chapter 1 through 5 vocabulary test, because you were supposed to take that in class this coming Thursday with your study guide for the first 15 minutes. So obviously that's not going to quite happen the way that we had planned. So instead, what I'm going to do is the test will be uploaded into Blackboard, and it will be available to you starting this Thursday, March 19th, until the 26th. So it's going to have a week. You're going to have a 1 week window to get this test done. It is going to be in there, and it's going to be timed, meaning that once you start the test, you're not going to be able to get out of it. You're going to need to finish it in one sitting. So, you know, I normally tell students 45 minutes to an hour for this. If you're not comfortable using Blackboard, I would maybe allocate even a little bit more time just to make sure that you don't accidentally click something. So this is going to be available March 19th through March 26th, 1 week. To get in, I will, on Thursday's video, I will talk to you more about how to access it, how to make sure you're submitting it, and making sure that you're comfortable with that, because that is, you know, a 50-point test, and I still need to give that to you. Now, because it's online and there's no way to time study guide use, you are still able to use your study guide. But that means, again, make sure your answers are complete sentences. You have answered every part of the question. You've done a really good job of thoroughly letting me know you understand the vocabulary words from chapters 1 through 5. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk to you about, and again, sorry, a little bit more screen sharing here. Go back into our Blackboard course under Content, our Mastery Skills Assessment. So you're seeing on my screen everything. You won't see everything on your screen. I already hid the first one because you all had it done. You should still be working on topics and main ideas, supporting details, making inferences, and now fact and opinion. We just talked about that today. Fact and opinion is now open. So please still be working on mastery skills. This is still a part of your grade. It's still a really important part of your grade. Because we're in week 9, you should have, 4 to 5 skills completed at this time. You really need to have those. And what I think I'm going to do at some point is maybe even do like a separate video on some mastery skills. I'll probably click into one and maybe walk you through one, because I know some of you were struggling with a few of them. So maybe that'll be helpful if I just do like a video or two specifically designated for mastery skills, making sure that you're comfortable with that mastery skill. So quick recap. Midterm comprehension test. Don't worry about it. If you already did it and you want some extra credit, type in your answers, scan your pages, send me pictures of your pages, and I'll give you some extra credit. Chapter 6, this whole video was going through fact and opinion. You are turning in your Chapter 6 text sheet to me by Friday, March 20th in the Dropbox. We will talk about your Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz on another video. So right now, just focus on the Chapter 6 tech sheet. And then your Chapter 1 through 5 test that was originally scheduled for Thursday the 19th is still happening, only it's online. You will have 1 week to do it, starting on this Thursday until the 26th. You'll get in, have to finish it in one sitting. You can't start it and then go, oh, I need a break, I need to come back to it later. It's not gonna work. You're gonna have to get it all done in one sitting. So make sure you allocate that time that you need, that you would normally have in class, 45 minutes to an hour. And then mastery skills. Please be still working your mastery skills. All right, again, we'll get through this. We'll work together. And I'm here. Reach out. Tell me what you need. See you Thursday.